Gentis. Turk.
Here.
Cosgrove. Severson.
Present.
Nelson.
Inspector.
Whiteman here. Paul. McGuire. Here.
And Landau here.
Mark Van Lundijk is present, please.
Sean is on his way too. Williamson. We are both absent.
Right, they both contacted me, so.
16 in favor, just against. Or 2 absent.
2 against being present.
And Mr. Vlasic, first of all, it's a pleasure meeting with you in this room, finally. So this feels more like it. And Mr. Vlasic, would you lead us? Well, excuse me, I'm sorry. First, we'll have invocation by Tom Coleman, pastor from Grandview Family Worship. Please.
First of all, I want to say thank you for allowing me to come and share an opening prayer, but also as a community member, thank you so much for serving our county with all that you do, the time you put into it. Again, thank you so much for doing that. So would you please join me as we pray? Lord Heavenly Father, we thank you for your grace and your mercy today. Thank you that your mercies are new every morning. I pray, Father, that today, this evening, as these men and women have met to discuss business about our county, I pray, Father, that you give them wisdom, favor. I pray, Father, that your word tells us that we need to pray for those that you have appointed in authority and positions over us in our communities. And so, Father, tonight, again, I just pray for your favor to be upon them. We pray that you would bless them. I pray, Father, again, every conversation, every decision that needs to be made. I pray, Father, for your counsel to be there as well. I pray, Father, that you would bless our county with health. I pray for a blessing of healing and health over our community, over our county with the pandemic that's happening, all that's going on. And I pray, Father, that again, that you would bless those that you place in authority over us in our community. And again, we just thank you for your goodness and your grace and your mercy towards us. And we ask these things tonight in your name, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And please lead us, Mr. Vlasic, in Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have actually a 24-point agenda tonight. One of the items, item number 6, has been scratched. And I would entertain a motion to approve that 24-point agenda. Carrie Severson, seconded by Mr. Cosgrove. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We have an agenda. The minutes of the May 19th meeting. I'll entertain a motion. Mr. McKee, seconded by Linda. Mrs. Gentis. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Now, we have some business before us tonight that we normally don't have, but I welcome. And that is taking care of the vacant supervisory districts that we had after the spring election. We have 3 districts that are in search of a supervisor. Districts 10, 11, and 15. We have 2 candidates for District 10. The incumbent, Brad Wagner, wants to step back in for 11. And we have 2 candidates for District 15. And what I'm going to do is invite the candidates for Supervisory District 10 to give maybe a short introduction, a 2-minute thing, so you know who they are, because we'll be voting on those positions. And we have two people now for District 10. They are Ingrid Glassbrenner and Avery Manning. And I'll invite Ingrid to introduce herself and say a few words. If you want to come up by the Vic or Clint, will give you the microphone.
Hi. I'm not sure. Okay. I think you guys can probably hear me all right. My name is Ingrid Glassbrenner. I've been a resident in the Richland County area since childhood. I live in town now, and my professional background is as a registered nurse and more recently in education as well. In the last almost 3 years, I've been serving on the Health and Human Services Board, and I very much love our community and this county here, and I am interested in serving it by being a county board supervisor and working with all of you. I love working with other people, and so thank you for taking the time to listen to me and entertain that.
Thank you, Mrs. Glassbrenner and Avery Manning.
I'm sure most of you know me. I worked here for the last 17 plus years, been retired for about a year now. And biggest reason probably is I see as far as this goes is nobody else wanted it. And I did register for the election, but you know how election went this year with the virus and everything going on. I can't do much, but the biggest thing, one of the biggest reasons, I promised that I would be a thorn in Victor's side for the entire time he was going to be here. And it's hard to do that. But otherwise, you know, most of you know me.
All right, thank you, Avery. How do we want to do this? Should we vote on District 10 or hear from all the candidates?
Might be best to go district by district, Kevin.
I think so. So what we're going to do, yes, Sean.
Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering, we had 3 candidates on our.
One drop down.
Okay, thank you.
You'll see some ballots in front of you with your name on them. Now you're not voting for yourself. You're going to write a name on the back of that candidate. You're voting for Ingrid Glassbrenner or Avery Manning to be the supervisor for District 10. And I'll appoint maybe Tim and Gary. Could you help us collect those ballots? Thank you. And bring them up to Attorney Southwick will be collecting those.
What am I doing?
You're doing the count. Please. Thank you.
16. Yes. Could have any. Somebody needs a majority, right? Yes. Kill that mark. Your counter. We're gonna be sure we got. Yep.
There are 16 supervisors present tonight, so a majority is needed to elect someone.
Let's just see if we have enough votes. And enough ballots.
Just Brad. Brad's the only one.
So read it so loudly so Mr. Vlasic can hear. Spell it out for Mr. Vlasic.
There are 16 votes and
16 there.
and 16 ballots for Ingrid Glassbrenner.
So Congratulations, Mrs. Glassbrenner. You are our new supervisor, District 10. And District 11, Brad Wagner. Want to say a few words, Brad, why you're crazy enough to re-up here?
Oh, that's right.
We really appreciate it, by the way.
Wagner.
Wagner,
Wagner.
Brad Wagner. But he's the only candidate, so.
I'm Brad Wagner. We're fortunate to be staying here for the previous 2 years. There were some things that we were going to do different, and my family and some things have come up and changed those plans for a couple of years. So I see that this is still vacant, and I feel that I should continue to help serve since I'm already here, and so that's why I'm back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner, and I would ask for a motion to direct the clerk to, all right, I'll ask for nominations. Are there any nominations?
Mr. Wagner.
Besides him.
We got him.
And the nomination people and a ballot cast.
Your motion.
All right, I have that motion. Do I have a second? Yes, Mr. Landite. All those in favor of accepting that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, congratulations, Mr. Wagner. Now, for District 15, we do have two candidates. They are Bob Frank and Danny Zadrusil. Is that, am I saying that right?
Yes, you made my day, Marty.
No, yeah, you bet. And since the first one here is Bob Frank, I would invite him to give us a couple of words.
Like said, I can have 2 words, and I'm not going to listen to that. So I am Bob Frank. My official name is Melvin Robert Frank, and so if you see that anywhere, that I am the same person. I worked for the Richland County Sheriff's Department for just over 29 years. I've been retired for 3.5-ish years. Since my retirement, I've been appointed to the 911 subcommittee. It's a governor-selected committee, so I was appointed by Governor Walker at the time. My term ends there July 1st of 2020. 2 days ago, I received the permission from the current governor, Tony Evers, appointed me to the same committee. On that committee, I am the chair of the State 911 Subcommittee, and we have been working across the state to bring funding and resources to the 911 centers, the PSAPs, the communication centers. We brought in $2.8 million in grant funding. We also worked with the CPR grant fund through Department of Health Services, bringing in another $775,000 to the local PSAPs. All that said, why do I want to do this? Well, I did notice that on the ballot, when I went to vote, there was nobody there, and that's not right. If I'm going to put my beliefs, if I'm going to put my experience to action, then I need to do something about it. And so that's why when I saw the opening, I put in for it. So my experience with the county board, with local committees, both state, local here, and pretty much across the state, because I do work with other agencies in the state, and try to bring in their funding and bring in their technology, even their 911 centers, into a big group that we're building out called the EZINet. That's one of the projects we're currently working on. So I'm looking for your vote. I think we can do a lot in Richland County. I think Richland County has a lot to offer, and I think there's some good potential here. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. Mr. Zadrusil.
Hi there, everybody. I know a few of you recognize me. I was born and raised here in the Richland Center of Oak Muscat area, and I've been living here, the greater Richland area, for about 5.5 years. And I'm active with the choral and theater departments at the university, and various volunteer projects, whether it's headstone cleaning at the cemetery or anything that pops up. I enjoy being out there among the people, lending a hand. You know, I'm an avid learner. If there's something I can do or something I can learn about to help better the county, to help it thrive, to help it be just the amazing place that it is, then that is what I'll do. And that is one of the main reasons I put in for the chance to serve on the board, was because, yes, I may not have held much of offices over the years, but it's something that I think would be a wonderful learning experience and really a good chance to help the county be all it can be.
Thank you, and now it's time for you to vote. So you're voting for Bob Frank or Dan Zanderson? Five for Dan. 11 for Frank.
11 for Mr. Frank and 5 for the other gentleman.
Okay, the majority votes, Bob Frank is our new supervisor for District 15. And now, maybe they can just stand in place. If the new supervisor would stand in place, Mr. Vlasek will swear you in.
Swear that I will support the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin. Faithfully discharge best of my ability.
Congratulations, new supervisors, and do we have places for them at the?
Some way in the back, unless they want to just fill in where the.
Sure, take a seat, please, and you'll be able to participate in all the voting tonight, and can make motions, second motions, all those good things, fun things. What do you need to turn this? Oaths? Yes. The oaths. Yes, Mr. Vlasic wants the oaths back too, please. And the ballots should be left too. Don't take those, don't throw them away. We'll recycle those, use them again. Not the ones that have been used, but the other ones. Okay. Agenda item number 7, a resolution approving the installation of new flooring in a room at the Simons Natatorium. Mr. Vlasic, please.
This will be resolution number 68. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted for the installation of new flooring in the large weight room of the Simons Natatorium, with the job to be done by Benjamin Flooring at a cost of $7,879.83. It be it further resolved that the bidding statutes were complied with regarding this project. The Simons Recreation Foundation will pay for this project. The County Board hereby expresses its sincere appreciation to the foundation. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. It's offered by the Finance and Personnel Committee, Marty Brewer, Linda Gentis, Don C., Melissa Luck, Dave Turk, and Sean Murphy Lopez, all signing.
You've heard the resolution. Mr. Cosgrove is voting, Mr. Cosgrove is moving to place the resolution to a vote, seconded by Mr. McKee. Any further discussion? This is kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? Got me, don't know.
I don't know.
David, you still on that committee?
A wrestling room floor. Made out of cork. I don't know how it's made. I really don't know, but I am assuming that it's.
Do we have a report from a Simons committee member here?
I'm this year, I don't know that we know the best type of waivers.
It's being paid for by this foundation, so this is a pass-through for us. Yes, sir.
This resolution was reviewed by the director of Simon. He approved.
Yes.
In effect, we're accepting a gift.
Yeah, we're accepting the gift. That's why I said a no-brainer.
Okay, all right.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We got a floor. Number 8, resolution authorizing payment to the town of Orion as reimbursement for a fire call growing out of a vehicle accident on County Trunk Highway O. Mr. Vlasic.
This will be resolution number 69. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted for reimbursing the town of Orion the amount of $200 for the town's costs relating to a fire call relating to a vehicle accident, County Trunk Highway O. Be it further resolved that funding for this reimbursement shall come from the contingency fund, fund number 11. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. It's offered by the Finance and Personnel Committee, Marty Brewer, Linda Gentis, Don C., Melissa Luck, Dave Turk, and Sean Murphy Lopez, all signing in favor.
You've heard the resolution. What are your wishes? Mr. C moves for approval, seconded by Mr. Manning. Discussion, questions? Why do we do this? No? Yes, no? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution is passed. Number 9, resolution approving purchases of computer-related equipment for Management Information Systems Department.
This will be resolution number 70. Now therefore be resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted for the Management Information Systems Department to make the following purchases. One, a base 5 server system, MC Unit XT380 from JCOM Technologies of Baraboo, the amount of $76,351.75, with the funds for this purchase to come from the 2020 Capital Projects Fund, Fund number 75. Two, a Barracuda Message Archiver 350 from JCOM Technologies of Baraboo, the amount of $5,451.78, with this purchase to be paid for from the 2020 Capital Projects Fund, Fund number 75. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. Resolutions offered by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Marty Brewer, Linda Gentis, Donna C., Melissa Luck, Dave Turk, and Sean Murphy will be signing.
You've heard the resolution. What are your wishes? Mrs. Gentis, do I have a second? Mr. Brandt? Discussion.
Do we have any reasoning for what the equipment's used for? Backup equipment, is it, what's the purpose of it?
I'll ask Clinton Langret to speak to this.
Your Barracuda messenger system, the 355 GCOM, has to do with our web filter. We've reached capacity. It was initially purchased back in 2010. The server unit is where the county's host server was purchased in October 2014. Servers should be replaced every 5 years, and this one is already over 6 years old. You can replace it. So this was also part of the 75 capital improvement project. So one is storing our data server, the other one's our exchange for our web traffic.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any further questions?
The cost again was what, how many, 75,000 a year?
Well, there's several costs here, 76,000, one of them, 5,451 is another. I guess two things, yeah. 76,
Okay,
351 and 5,451. A lot of money, a lot of money.
Finance has looked at this and makes sense?
Yes.
They typically go out for quotes to different vendors.
I know they do. I think they had two quotes here. And they took the best one.
For the server system, we had quotes from JCOM Technologies, CD, WG, and then Heartless. Oh no, they were awaiting bids. They didn't get a bid in. So we had two bids. The other one was from Heartland Business System. We put out to 3 and got 2 back. With the Barracuda system, put out bids to the same and got one back from JCOM Technologies and one from CDWG. The better coming in at JCOM.
They were, as I recall, they were close, but it was like $1,000 gift or something. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution passes. Resolution relating to 2 contracts for Health and Human Services Department.
This will be resolution number 71. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that the following 2 contract matters with the Department of Health and Human Services are hereby approved. 1, assignment of the 2020 contract for $110,000 with Regroup Therapy Incorporated, which was approved by the resolution number 19-124 to RTP WI S period C period of Chicago. 2, with Premier Financial Management Services Incorporated, with the original contract amount of $100,000 is amended to $150,000 due to an increased need for financial management services for children with disabilities and their families. Be it further resolved that the Health and Human Services Board is hereby authorized to amend the above contracts by not more than 50%. And be it further resolved that the Director of the Health and Human Services Department, Ms. Tracy Sorensen, is hereby authorized to sign the above contracts on behalf of the county in accordance with this resolution. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. The resolutions offered by the County Board of Supervisor members of the Health and Human Services Carrie Severson, Van Nelson, Peg Hall, and Marty Brewer, all signing in favor.
You've heard the resolution. What are your wishes? Mr. Severson makes a motion, seconded by Mr. Gatchell. Discussion? Tracy is here if you want to hear from her.
I was just curious exactly what services the financial management service does.
They're primarily fiscal agent for families with self-directed support program. They family wants to hire an individual, a family member, but a private individual to provide cares. This agent serves as a fiscal agent directly to the family. Fiscal agent.
So is this funding, is this money for just the management of the money, or is this funding for the management plus the services going to the?
This particular contract is for that managed service. Those are state funds that come through for the Children with Disabilities Program and cover the cost of them providing fiscal agents.
Do we know how much money they're managing?
Sorry.
Good participation, Supervisor Frank. Right there, right quick. You bet.
Trying to figure it out.
Absolutely. That's why we're here. Anyone else? Thank you, Tracy. I'm going to call for a vote then. All those in favor of these contracts signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The resolution is adopted. A resolution approving the continuation of a state opioid response grant from the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. The microphones were perfectly balanced when we used to have everything in a circle. Well, almost perfectly balanced. Now everything is different. Mr. Vlasic.
This is resolution number 72. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted for the Department of Health and Human Services to apply for and accept a continuation of the July 2018 State Opioid Response Grant from the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, with the $36,348 amount remaining in the grant to be used for the following purposes: for additional funding for current substance abuse staff, coordinate care and update current memorandums of understanding with local providers for medication-assisted treatment, for an additional 10 hours per week of substance abuse treatment staff time, for an additional full-time substance abuse treatment staff position. Be it further resolved that approval is hereby granted for the grant funds to be spent in accordance with the terms of the grant. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately on its passage and publication. The resolution is offered by the County Board Supervisor, members of the Health and Human Services Board, Carrie Severson, Peg Hall, Van Nelson, and Marty Brewer, all signing in favor.
You've heard the resolution. What are your wishes? Mr. Nelson makes a motion, seconded by Mr. McKee. Do we have questions or discussion?
Are these new positions? I heard a couple positions there, or are these just continuing funding?
This grant had been administered from Southwest PAC. Southwest PAC asked no longer administer it, so the health and services would be picking it up. So it's paying for existing services. So an existing position that has been vacant, so there's not someone in that position now, but we can fill it.
Great, thank you.
Is there an in-kind requirement?
Not for this particular.
Okay. Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The resolution carries. A resolution retroactively approving Richland County's compliance with the Families First Coronavirus Response Act.
This is resolution number 73. Now therefore be it resolved by the that Richland County, as an employer, hereby adopts, as of April 2nd, 2020, the temporary policies contained in the Federal Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which modifies the requirements of the Pandemic Leave Act, expands access to unemployment compensation insurance benefits, creates paid sick leave for eligible employees, while the employee or his or her family are impacted by COVID-19. And be it further resolved that eligible county employees can obtain online Richland County Families First Coronavirus Response Request Form, complete that form and email it or fax it to the county clerk's office. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective as of April 2nd, 2020, and shall expire on December 31st, 2020. The resolution is offered by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Harry Brewer, Linda Gentis, Don C., Lisa Luck, Dave Turk, Sean Murphy Lopez, all signing it.
You've heard the resolution. What are your wishes? Mr. Cosgrove, do we have a second? Mr. Van Landijk. Second time I got it. Okay. This is retroactive. Makes everything copacetic with what we've already done. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. The resolution is adopted. The next thing we have to deal with is an ordinance. And this ordinance is reducing the speed limit on a stretch of 2 county trunk highways, both of which I travel twice a day with my school bus. So I think I'm in favor of this, but I don't know.
This is the ordinance number 10. Richland County Board of Supervisors does hereby ordain as follows. 1, the 0.30 mile stretch of County Highway H in the town of Bloom, as to which the current speed limit is 35 miles per hour, as shown by speed limit signs, is hereby reduced to 25 miles per hour. Number 2, the 0.35 mile stretch of County Highway D in the town of Bloom, as to which the current speed limit is 35 miles per hour, as shown by speed limit signs, is hereby reduced to 25 miles per hour. 3, the County Highway Commissioner shall install replacement signs in accordance with this ordinance. Number 4, the ordinance shall be effective immediately and after the installation of speed limit signs. The ordinance is offered by the Highway and Transportation Committee. Gary Manning, Kerry Severson, and Chad Cosgrove all signing in favor.
You've heard the ordinance. What are your wishes? Mr. Sean Murphy Lopez, and second by Mr. C. And I would suggest that Mr. Vlasic said 30 mile stretch. It's 0.3 mile stretch on County H. Mr. Murphy Lopez.
Yep, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to give a little background on this because this is in my district. I received a concern from a resident of Bloom City, which is an unincorporated village in Bloom Township, about a traffic cone in the middle of the highway in the village. And so I forwarded that to the highway commissioner and went out and talked to the neighbors. And the reason the neighbors had put a cone in the middle of the county highway was because there are kids living on both sides of the highway, and they're oftentimes going back and forth. And the residents were concerned that folks were going too fast on this highway. So Mr. Petrick went out, talked to the residents, found all that out. This was only 3 weeks ago. So I really appreciate how quickly he addressed this with the residents. He suggested that we potentially reduce this down to 25 miles per hour. I did inform the town chair, the town board, and some other residents that this was coming about. I haven't heard anyone say anything negative about it. This is just for a short stretch of 2 county highways that happen to intersect in Bloom City. So I just want to say thank you to the highway commissioner for addressing this so quickly, and the highway committee for approving this.
You've heard the ordinance. We'll call the question. All those in favor?
He has a question.
Or do you have a question?
I have a question.
Mr. C first.
Yes. I'm interested in whether or not the township has to take some action.
Mr. Chairman, legally,
No, it's a county code highway.
Mr. McGuire.
To be legal, this has to be posted 2 consecutive weeks, I believe, in the Richland Observer. Is that correct?
No. Resolutions and ordinances are published once by the clerk, the observer. Am I correct, Victor?
Yes.
So it was published once.
I think we should check that, because if we're gonna, when you, otherwise we have people that get a speeding ticket. That's why it should be posted 2 consecutive weeks in Richland County. I mean, I see the safety issues, but we also have to be, concerned about people who would maybe driving on it for the first time 10 or 12 days later and are not aware of the change of speed.
Mr. Nelson?
Pretty hard to hear back. I'm not using part of what you're talking about. I know what you said. I don't know what the discussion.
I brought up the question that this has to be posted 2 consecutive weeks in the Richland Observer so that all drivers can be aware of the speed change.
Mr. Chairman, the supervisor could offer an amendment if you wish to that effect.
The posting of the signs pretty much speaks for themselves. I think when we did this, thinking if we reduced it from 35 down to 25, maybe really high. So signs, putting in a paper, I understand what you're saying, but the signs must speak for themselves if it's now 25 miles.
Mr. Frank?
The people establish habits of driving a certain speed, and they don't always look at they've been driving that road for 10 years. We change the speed limit, they're gonna get a ticket, they're gonna be upset.
Mr. Frank?
Thank you. I would suggest that the highway commissioner flag signs, 2 orange flags sticking out at 45-degree angles from each of the new signs, an indicator that there's a change. So traffic coming in can see those flags, see a change. I don't know if we need an amendment for that. In my personal opinion, I think that can be mentioned.
Mr. Cosgrove?
That is the plan by the highway. Flags on all the new signs.
Mr. Severson? Okay, I'm going to defer to our court counsel on the posting or the 2-week notice in the paper. Is it necessary, Ben, or not?
It's not legally necessary, but let me say to all supervisors, especially the new supervisors, that any supervisor at any time during a discussion can offer an amendment as long as the amendment is germane to the matter being discussed.
So I'll go back to Mr. McGuire. Do you want to amend?
I would like to add that in as an amendment, yes. That it be posted for 2 weeks in the Richland Observer.
Okay, 2-week posted in the Richland Observer. Do I have a second to his amendment? No, I don't have a second.
Second. I will second it for the sake of discussion.
All right. Discussion on the amendment.
What does it cost? To advertise it for another week. $100?
I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, let me, if I may. Be sure
Yes,
I have,
Mr. Southwick.
be sure I have the supervisors a motion to amend. Paragraph 5, the clerk shall publish this ordinance for 2 consecutive weeks in the Richland Observer. That do it, sir?
That's correct.
Mr. Wagner.
I would say that it's probably more than efficient enough to have those flags out there as talked about. I feel that putting it in for a second time would be a way.
Mrs. Glassbrenner, did you have a comment? Mr. Severson.
Chairman, could Mr. Frank light me on his years of service as a sheriff's deputy when a situation like that arises? Is it more favorable that the deputies would maybe grant a grace period? That kind of been known.
Mr. Frank, please answer his question if you can.
So that is a determination that the sheriff can make, and a grace period is often done in periods of time, and that is usually then announced. So there would be a traffic stop, and they pick a window of speed, within that range, and then they give like a 2-week warning. We did that, particularly on Highway 80 during the reconstruction a great number of years ago. That was a big thing as people were driving on it thinking it was completed, and yet we're driving and damaging the roads. We started doing a warning process, and that got the attention out pretty quick. That would, again, would be up to
Mr. McKee.
Supposed to be a conscientious driver, supposed to be looking at the sign.
Okay. I think we're ready to vote on the amendment to post 2 consecutive weeks in the Observer. All those in favor?
Request for a roll call.
A roll call?
Yeah, there was.
You kidding me?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll roll call the amendment. Mr. Vlasic.
Remember who's got which district? It's 10.
Ingrid's 10.
Ingrid's 10.
Wagner
is 11. Frank is 15.
Okay, start with Mr. Carroll.
Hey.
Murphy Lopez,
No.
Van Van Dyke,
No.
C.
Well, intentions, but I vote no.
Key, Brewer,
No.
Buck,
No.
Annie, Gotcha,
No.
Ingrid, Glassbrenner,
No.
Wagner, Gentis,
No.
Turk,
No.
Cosgrove,
No.
Frank,
No.
Severson,
No.
Cooley, Nelson,
No.
Hall, Dwyer,
Yes.
Okay, the amendment was defeated. Are we ready to vote on the original motion? All those in favor of the ordinance changing the speed limit in Bloom City signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
The motion is approved. The ordinance is in force. Number 14, an ordinance amending ordinance 92-5 establishing procedures for the sale of tax deed property.
this is the ordinance number 11. Following underlying provisions of ordinance number 92-5 as amended are hereby adopted, and the following crossed out provisions are hereby repealed.
What's the matter with me?
10, the county clerk shall publish a notice for 3 consecutive weeks in the regarding the first effort to sell any tax deed property. Subsequent efforts to sell shall be advertised for only 1 week. The notice shall contain the following provisions in addition to the requirement of section 9. A, the municipal unit, tax parcel number or numbers, and the legal description of the property to be sold and the address of the property. 2D, the following paragraph. For further information about this property, visit Richland County website at click on or call 608-647-3658. This ordinance shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. It's being offered by the Finance and Personnel Committee, Marty Brewer, Linda Gentis, Don C., Melissa Luck, Dave Turk, and Sean Murphy Lopez, all signing in favor.
You've heard the ordinance. What are your wishes? Mr. Manning, second. Mr. McKee. Discussion. Mr. Lopez Murphy.
Mr. Chair, so I was in communication with Corporation Counsel today. There were a few edits that I was requesting, and Mr. Southwick came back and he gave me another version of this ordinance. So I would like to propose an amendment tonight, I believe, if that's in order.
Supervisor, no, this is the one that you approved, sir, was read by the clerk.
Is that, okay, all right. Mr. Chair, that's my mistake then. That's good. I was looking at the one that was on my iPad, and I wasn't fully following along, so I can explain the changes if needed, but otherwise, that's great. So my apologies.
Just have to keep up, Sean. That's-
Supervisor Murphy Lopez made some, requested me to draft some last minute changes this afternoon, which is what the clerk read.
And Mr. Chair, I'd just say that the only significant change was one of the things we had discussed at the Finance and Personnel Committee back in December was that we had to advertise these tax deed sales for 3 weeks. Even if we were, this was oftentimes happening, even if we had already brought it to Finance and Personnel, no one bid on it, and it went back to the Property Committee, then we'd have to get a new minimum bid placed by them, then it would come back to Finance and Personnel only after it had been advertised for another 2 weeks in the Observer. So this change makes it explicit in the ordinance to match state statute that we only have to advertise for 1 week if it's already been advertised for 3 weeks originally. So that was the change I was just asking to be included in the ordinance, and then Mr. Southwick did make that change. And then one other thing I just want to mention too is that our Finance and Personnel Committee meeting in June was recorded. There was a video recording of that. And I talked to Administrator Langreck. I'm going to continue to record those meetings. So a lot of times the spending oftentimes becomes one of the biggest discussion items at the county board for good reason. And so I just wanted to mention that information is out there. And it is out there for last month as well on the county list. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Murphy Lopez, you were out of order there because it wasn't on the agenda, but
sorry,
we'll continue though. All right, I think we've talked enough about this amendment to our property sale. It makes sense to me. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're getting into properties, ordinance relating to a parcel belonging to Thomas and Cody Jurgensen in the town of Dayton.
The ordinance number 12, amendment number 490. That the following described 2.08 acre parcel belonging to Thomas and Cody Jurgensen. The town of Dayton is hereby rezoned from general agricultural and forestry district D-F to the single family residential R-2 district. The ordinance is offered by the Zoning and Land Information Committee. Linda Gentis and Chad Cosgrove both signing in favor.
You've heard the ordinance. What are your pleasures? What is your pleasure? Mrs. Gentis, Mr. Gotcho seconds. Mr. Bindle, any comments?
Anyone have any questions? What are they doing? What are they doing? Okay, we'll go through this.
Well, the new members like to see you up there. So do the old ones.
So the new people, I'm Mike Bend, I'm the zoning administrator. What is happening here is Cody, the son, is splitting off 2 acres to build a new house. Just stay here.
Okay, splitting off some land to build a new house. You've heard it. Are you ready to vote? Yes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ordinance passes. Ordinance number, or agenda item number 16, relating to 2 parcels belonging to Paul Perkins and Jeremy Carter in the town of Dayton.
This is ordinance number 13, amendment number 491. That the following described parcel belonging to Paul Perkins and Jeremy Carter in the town of Dayton are hereby rezoned as follows. Number 1, the following described 2.25 acre parcel is hereby rezoned from the general agricultural and forestry district D-F to the single family residential R-2 district.
It's, well, Mr. Southwood, Mike's on. I'm sorry.
The following described 34.06 acre parcel is hereby rezoned from the general agricultural and forestry district A-F to the agricultural and residential district A-R. The ordinance is offered by the Zoning and Land Information Committee. Linda Gentis and Chad Cosgrove both signing in favor.
You've heard the ordinance. What's your pleasure? Carrie says so moves, seconded by Brad.
Background on this one is Mr. Carter is a nephew of Mr. Perkins, dividing off the 2.5 acres to build a new house. The remainder of the acreage is less than 35 acres, so the remainder of the acreage is zoned to ag residential.
Mrs. Luck.
I just have a general question. So I know Janetta used to always bring up, what will happen if the septic fails on these small 2-acre parcels? Like, will we ever talk about like what the plan would be for all these little parcels that we're doing?
The 2 acres, there should be enough room for replacement. That's why the acres went from 1 acre to 2 acres.
Okay. So is that kind of the minimum? Like if you have 2 acres, you should have at least 2 shots at a septic?
With 2 acres and done properly, you should probably have 3.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Great, thank you. Ready to vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The ordinance is passed. Ordinance relating to a parcel belonging to Stanley and Rita Dilly in the town of Richland.
This is ordinance number 14, amendment number 492. That the following describes 17.3 acre parcel belonging to Stanley and Rita Dilly in the town of Richland. It's hereby rezoned from the general agricultural and forestry district (F) to the agricultural and residential district (A-R). The ordinance is offered by the Zoning and Land Information Committee under Genesis and Chad Cosgrove.
You've heard the ordinance. What is your pleasure? Mrs. Call, saw you back there. So. And seconded by Mrs. Gentis.
The history on this one is the Dillies are selling land to their son, keeping the remainder 17 acres for themselves, which is less than 35 acres. It already has the house and buildings on it, so there'll be no new house on this lot.
Question?
Yes, Mr. C.
What is the zoning status of the remaining 17?
The 17 acres is being rezoned to ag residential. The remainder 200 acres, same ag forestry being sold this summer. Already has 5 acres.
Thank you. You've heard the ordinance. You've heard the explanation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ordinance passes. Is adopted. And while you're up there, do you have anything on petitions for zoning amendments received since the last county board session?
So since the last meeting, there is a petition by Peter and Robert Matthews to rezone 2 acres, ag forestry to residential 2, section 35, town forest. There is a petition by Jacob and Cheryl Stager to rezone 2.32 acres from agricultural forestry to residential 2, section 5, town forest. There's a petition by Jerry and Sarah Ray to rezone 5 acres from ag forestry to residential 2, section 19, town forest. There's a petition by Dennis and Nancy Dosh to rezone 13 acres from agricultural forestry to agricultural residential, section 30, town marshal. There's a petition by Swain Family Farms LLC to rezone 2.05 acres from ag forestry to residential 2, section 5, town of Willow. There's a petition by Eugene and Patricia Schubert to zone 24.79 acres from ag forestry to ag residential, section 25, town of Henrietta. There's a petition by John Montgomery to zone 20 acres from ag forestry to ag residential, section 32, town of Henrietta. And there's a petition by Tim Christie Newman to zone 7.18 acres from ag forestry to agricultural residential, section 23, town of Henrietta.
Sounds like you'll be busy. Anything recommended for denial? Thank you. Yes, Mr. Nelson.
Any more discussion? Michael, like
There's been no applications or nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Any more?
The next thing on our agenda is our appointments, and do we have a list of appointees, Victor, or what?
Committee on committees is gonna meet.
Okay, so we will have a committee on committees meeting. Well, I think we got time, but we can have a virtual meeting. We'll do that. Yes, sir, Mr. C.
Would it be in order to new board members opportunity, think about what committees they'd want to be on, given the vacancies available, and consider these appointments at our next county board meeting?
Yes, that would be appropriate, and the committee on committees will, I guess, do exactly that. We will poll our new committee, or our new supervisors, and see what they'd like to be on, and then we'll see what the availability is. I will add that because you're coming in late, a lot of the committee assignments have been made, but in knowing that we would be hopefully getting 3 new supervisors, we did hold some positions open on some of the committees. I can't tell you off the top of my head what they are until we look at them again, but that would be in the consideration as well. But certainly if you really want to be on a committee, then you should let us know. I know, for instance, Mrs. Glassbrenner is already on the Health and Human Services Board as a citizen, well, as a health professional member. So I don't know how that, I would have to defer to probably Mr. Southwick as to what happens then, but we'll handle that as we go. So then, appointments, number 20, then it's going to be handled by the committee on committees. We will have a virtual meeting. We've covered positions on zoning, rezoning. Brings us to reports, County Administrator, Land Conservation Department. I don't think anyone's here from Land Conservation, so.
Reports on that.
Okay, Mr. Langreck. Mr. Vlasek is pointing out to me that the Land Conservation Department report is on your iPad, so.
Okay, two-page report to release to you, as you've seen. I'm sorry for our new members, but we'll get it to you as soon as we can. The first part of the information talks about our COVID-10 response. The statistics provided through Tracy Health and Human Services. At the time of June 10th, we had 1,150 negative tests come back in the county, 14 positive tests. Next data point that we're tracking is then the percentage of tests that are positive. We are blessed at being 1.2% positive tests. We're also blessed then with our last occurrence of a positive test came on May 16th of 2020. So we've had several weeks now with no positive tests in the county. Hopefully we can continue to keep our numbers down to help promote our different functions of reopening schools, more visitations to long-term care facilities and other endeavors that we're trying to take with our partners through this COVID crisis. In response to the COVID crisis, some of the policies that have come up to you folks to move on include a declaration of disaster, COVID-19 plan, Families First Act that you made motion on tonight, video teleconferencing, remote work policy, some of the status on our public buildings. Currently, the courthouse is restricted by departments. Health and Human Services is restricted at a phase 1. We'll be moving into phase 2 on Monday. So we'll have some clientele now coming into the building, Health and Human Services. Simon Center is currently open by appointment right now. Fairgrounds are closed to mass gatherings. Land Conservation Office is restricted. UW campus is restricted, no access. Rifle range, no mass gatherings. Trails and camping, no mass gatherings. On your report that you'll see here that we say, in conjunctions, we're evaluating individual requests for mass gatherings at the county board. As we, from the time of this report to delivering a report to Fair and Recycling Committee last night, we've changed views on that. We have made recommendation that was passed through Fair and Recycling Committee to discontinue any types of organizational meetings at the fairgrounds through September 13th and the fair day. Restructuring, working with rules and resolutions and finance and personnel to have establishment of policy in place, establishment of procedures, authority of management, Richland County governing bodies, roles and structures, administrative duties and responsibilities, all kind of fed through those types of committees. Establishment policy will be, I hope, the geekiest thing that I ever present to you. That is essentially a policy on policy to match our committee on committees, but it's kind of putting the framework in place on a format on what policy should look like and what it should include. Then we also have establishment procedure, which is comparable to procedure. And the vision is that policy is established by bodies and that procedures on how to administer that is done by administration or leadership. Authority of management also kind of then defines the authorities and the responsibilities that you're expecting of us as your management. And then having a Richland County governing bodies, roles and structure kind of defines your individual roles as individual members, as well as your collective responsibilities as your different bodies. And then part of that, on how that filters out, we'll come back around then and decide what are the administrative duties and responsibilities that you want for you. Working with property grounds and buildings on some improvements for the courthouse. I hope to reach out now to everybody in the next few weeks to kind of get a gauge on some of the different priorities you have to put in the consideration for our strategic planning as we build towards the 2021 budget and beyond. Financial initiatives. I've worked with departments on trying to firm up numbers for a gap this year as an impact from the COVID-19 experience. I hope to deliver a report to finance and personnel in July, which will then come to you in July following that. Working on capital improvement borrowing with Victor's office to have a method in place to track that expenditures that are coming out of our Fund 75. Training the supervisors. Many of you are participating in the Monday events offered through Wisconsin Counties Association. I think 2 out of 4 now have been completed. And then looking to work with Supervisor Turk on lining up some additional kind of more localized training for the group as we enter into July. We do have an invitation to go to Wisconsin Counties Association Conference. If there is interest, if you can get, we've got a website on here where you can get the actual form. If you can please fill that out and present it into Victor's office. We'll evaluate on how much interest there is and how much money we have available to send folks, and also kind of factor in the risk of sending folks there based on the pandemic.
It did say on there that members are registered.
Yes, that is correct. And then just to make you aware of our communication efforts right now is I hope to be able to deliver a report to you monthly. Our EOC is continuing to meet twice a week. Our steering committee is meeting once a week. Wisconsin Counties Association, I listen to their weekly updates on Mondays. I try to reach out to local medias at least weekly. We are having department heads meetings that we're conducting monthly. On a quarterly basis, I'm hoping to meet with the different department function groups. And then the administrative advisory team, we're looking to meet approximately 3 times a week. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Langreck. I wanted to plug, David was going to plug it and Clint already did, but the county's association conference, it's close, it's up at the Dells. Sauk County really needs the money now because they're hurting on sales tax. I heard the other day they're down $2 million right now. So got to get that back up. Yes, sir.
Clint mentioned the online training that the Wisconsin Counties Association has been doing. The first 2 sessions are complete, but they were going to record those sessions and make them available on their website. So for our newly elected supervisors, you should still have access to those programs, and we'll try to get you that information as soon as we can, so that you can kind of catch up with the first couple sessions that were presented. And they're doing them on Monday mornings, so it may not be optimal for you to attend live, so you can access the recorded versions later too. Yes, and we have welcome packets that WCA has provided. We'll get to the new members as well.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Clint. Yes, sir, Mr. C.
Chairman, if I might just add a dimension, Clint's remark regarding coronavirus testing. I'm sure most of us have heard good news about the Pine Valley Rehabilitation Center. Testing was completed on all of the staff, all of the residents, and there was not one positive result. All of them tested negative. That's a great tribute to the leadership at Pine Valley, our administrator there, and our staff. Take great pride in that effort. Many of you know, nursing homes have had a real problem with virus breakout, so county put it better than 10 so far.
I don't believe any of our nursing facilities have had that problem, have they? So all of our facilities are negative. Schmidt? What's the other one? I can't think.
Our house.
Yeah. Okay, we're almost to the end of this meeting, and you new supervisors, I've got this for you. And I guess if you have a desire for a committee. Oh, okay. Well, Victor once again is right here. Here we have a list of the open committees. So when you get your packet, you can pick that up.
Chair, wasn't there some appointments?
Yes, we're going to have a committee on committee meetings virtually and handle the appointments with the appointments of the new members.
Parks Commission forwarded on a name to you, the county board last night.
We get it?
For approval on the Parks.
We voted for somebody last time, we were supposed to vote as a board tonight.
Get county board approval. We advertised for
Well, just give us a moment here then. We didn't know that.
Well, Parks Commission is listed. I think that was one of our vacancies.
The supervisor could make a motion to appoint that individual to supervise the way.
There's one supervisory vacancy, but this one is for a citizen vacancy. It's already been applied for.
Well, why don't you make a motion then for the citizen supervisor or the citizen vacancy? And who are you putting forward?
Eric C. Mandel.
Eric C. Mandel, okay, and motion and second. Manning, second by Severson.
C. Mandel is a resident of Richland County, lives in 10th Street, Leeds. Also property over on Arnold Drive, works for Kramer Company.
Can we please speak up a little bit? I'm not hearing all this. A little bit louder, please.
He's got a mask on, it's hard to hear him.
I realize that.
C. Mandel, Eric C. Mandel is being presented as a Parks Committee, Parks
7-year term.
7-year term, commissioners, Parks Commissioner, citizen member. And we have a motion and a second, and he gave some of his bio there. Sounds like an upstanding individual. I don't know him, but this was properly vetted, I know, by your board, by your committee.
Replacing Pete Colstead.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of appointing Eric C. Mandel to that position signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? You have a new Parks Commissioner. All right. I'll entertain another motion to adjourn, Mr. Manning, seconded by Mr. Murphy Lopez. I have a question back here, Mr. Nelson.
I think it's appropriate that when you know that the fair and recycling did cancel the county fair for a year, I think it's appropriate that it's brought out here.
Yes. Any comments? Mr. Manning, Manning made the motion.
Recommendation was
Carrie.
delivered
See
to
if
the
there's-
committee last night. A lot of factors that went into it. We did have a few citizens that came on to express how they felt about it.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, is this on the agenda?
No. Correspondence? I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, it's my opinion, it's not on the agenda.
Okay, we'll adjourn and then you can speak to it. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Yes, I did. Manning, seconded by Murphy Lopez. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, Clint, can you speak to the fair?
A report was delivered last night to the committee.
Can't do this, it's not on the agenda.
Well, okay, we're adjourned.
Your supervisors are taking a chance with the open meeting law if you listen to them.
Thanks, Steve. Okay. All right, we're done. Don't forget, the next meeting, bring this with you.